The first thing I noticed was her perfume. It wasn't the usual one. Rena always wore something soft, vanilla or lavender, something that lingered like a memory. But this night, the scent punched through the hallway before she even entered the room. Sharp, foreign, like it didn't belong to her at all. She stood in the doorway, hair swept up, heels clutched in her hand, bare feet dirty from city sidewalks. Her mascara had smudged just enough to tell me she'd cried, but not enough to ruin the effort she put into getting ready. "What happened?" I asked. She didn't answer. She walked past me without a glance, dropped her purse on the counter, and turned on the kitchen sink. The water roared, and for a moment, I thought she might be about to wash away something. Maybe guilt. Maybe a lipstick stain that wasn't hers. Maybe blood. I didn't know yet. "Where were you?" I asked again, softly this time. My voice came out dry, cracked, like I hadn't used it in weeks. Her answer was a whisper. "Don't start, Darrell. Please." Start what? Start unraveling? Start noticing the bruises beneath the glitter? She had gone to that party against my wishes. I'd asked her not to. No, begged her not to. There was something about it that felt wrong from the start. It wasn't a gut feeling. It was a certainty I couldn't explain. Like I'd already seen the ending, but was powerless to stop the story. The party wasn't just a gathering. It was him. He'd be there. I don't say his name out loud anymore. Not because it hurts, but because it still tastes like metal. He was her co-worker. A word that lost meaning the night she started deleting her call logs. The invitation arrived 2 weeks before. Embossed, silver trim, the kind of envelope that made our mortgage payment seem like a joke. She kept the RSVP card in her purse for days, pretending she hadn't made up her mind already. Pretending I had a say. I told her, "I don't trust the setup. I don't trust the people. And I don't trust him." She said, "Then trust me." I did. That was my fatal mistake. Because when she walked through that door at 3:17 a.m., everything about her felt different. The silence between us didn't feel like tension. It felt like aftermath. She didn't explain why she didn't respond to my texts. She didn't mention the voicemail I left, the one where I broke down in the car like a child, asking if she was safe, if she was even thinking about me. She just stood at the sink, rinsing her hands like they were still dirty. And then she said it, quietly, carelessly, like she was commenting on the weather. "I think we should talk. Tomorrow." That's when I knew it was over. But what I didn't know, not yet, was what really happened at that party. The truth wouldn't come from her. It came from someone else. Someone I never expected. And when I learned what she did, what they all did, it wasn't just our marriage that shattered. It was everything. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed pretending to. Eyes shut, body still, listening to the distant sound of Rena pacing through the house. She didn't come to bed. I knew she wouldn't. At 3:41 a.m., I heard the guest room door click shut, a quiet signal that whatever we were had officially been rerouted. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every second of the previous day. The conversation, the silence during dinner, her dress hanging in the hallway for hours, black satin, the kind that didn't wrinkle, like it had no intention of staying still. I should have stopped her from leaving. But how do you stop someone who's already decided you don't matter? The next morning, I walked into the kitchen expecting another wall of silence. But Rena was there, standing by the window in an oversized hoodie, sipping coffee with the kind of calm that only comes after chaos. The kind that scared me more than yelling ever could. "You said we should talk," I said carefully. She didn't look at me. "I know." "Well," I asked, forcing a smile, though it cracked at the edges. "Let's talk." "I need space," she said. Just like that. Like asking for a glass of water. Last night made me realize a lot. I blinked. "What do you mean, a lot?" "I've been living like I'm 22 again," she said, setting her mug down without sound. And for one night, I felt free. My heart did this weird collapsing motion. Like it wasn't breaking but folding in on itself, trying to disappear. "So you what?" I asked. "You went out, ignored my calls, and realized I'm your prison?" Her expression didn't shift. Not once. Not even guilt. "Darrell," she said, "don't make this dramatic." I laughed. A small, sad, cracked laugh. "You disappeared all night. You didn't tell me where you were. You didn't even answer when I asked if you were okay." "I was fine," she said. "I was with people. Friends. I had a ride. I didn't know you an itinerary." Maybe she was right. Maybe she didn't owe me anything anymore. But then came the message. It was around noon when my phone buzzed. I was out in the garage, trying to fix the backlight on a busted TV I'd been too depressed to toss. The text came from a number I didn't recognize. You don't know me, but I was at the party last night. I think you deserve to know what happened. My stomach flipped. I stepped outside immediately, making sure Rena was nowhere near, and called the number. It rang twice. Then a woman answered. Her name was Brielle. She said she worked at the same company as Rena, in finance, but they weren't exactly friends. I didn't want to get involved, she told me. But after last night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about your face. My face? I asked. I saw a picture. On Rena's phone. You were smiling. Holding a puppy. You looked proud. Like you'd do anything for her. And I knew you had no idea what she was doing behind your back. My hands started to go numb. Please, I said. Tell me. She hesitated. She wasn't with coworkers all night. At least, not the kind that talk about quarterly projections. She left with someone around midnight. Not someone from the company. He showed up late. Tall. Long beard. Rough-looking guy in a leather jacket. Everyone thought it was weird. Do you know where they went? No. But they didn't come back. Silence. Then, she said, she told people you were controlling. That you didn't let her live. That this was her first night of freedom in years. I don't know what she meant, but I thought you should know. I thanked her. Don't ask me why. I think it's just what you say when your world gets pulled out from under you. I went back inside. Rena was on the couch, scrolling on her phone like the world wasn't caving in. And I stood there, quietly, looking at the woman I married, trying to decide if I should confront her then and there, or wait until I had something she couldn't talk her way out of. In the end, I chose neither. Because that evening, something arrived in my inbox. And what I saw inside was something I would never unsee. The email came from an account I didn't recognize, a Gmail address with no name, no signature, no introduction, just a subject line that read, "Thought you might want this." Inside was a single attachment. No text, no warning, just a 58-second video file labeled IMG_8492. MOV. I didn't open it at first. I sat at my desk staring at it, my fingers hovering over the mouse, heart pounding like I was holding a live grenade. I don't know how long I sat there, 5 minutes, maybe 10, arguing with myself. A part of me prayed it was some kind of mistake, spam, or maybe even a cruel prank. But deep down I knew this was going to hurt, and I clicked it anyway. The video started with low music, bass thumping in the background. It was clearly recorded at the party. The lighting was warm, low, and hazy. For the first few seconds, it was just feet dancing, clinking glasses, laughter, someone singing off-key. Then the camera tilted, like the person recording was adjusting their grip, and that's when I saw her. Rena, my wife, was in the center of the shot, laughing in that loud, open-mouthed way she used to reserve for private moments with me. But it wasn't just her laugh. It was the man beside her. Tall, scruffy, hand casually resting on the small of her back like it had been there 1,000 times before. They weren't kissing. They weren't doing anything technically damning. But the way she leaned into him, the way she looked up at him with her whole face smiling, it was more intimate than anything she'd done with me in months. Hell, maybe years. Then, near the end of the clip, the man whispered something into her ear. She leaned closer, said something I couldn't hear, and nodded slowly. Then they both turned and walked off screen. Together. The video ended there. No confrontation. No scandal. Just two people disappearing into a shadow where I didn't exist. I sat still for a long time after the screen went black. It wasn't rage that hit me. Not yet. It was something worse. Confirmation. The kind that doesn't explode, but erodes, slow, quiet, permanent. The kind that changes your posture, your voice, the way you look at the world. I didn't confront her right away. I couldn't. I felt like a man living underwater, everything muffled and unreal. I went outside, sat on the porch, and watched the wind move through the trees like I was waiting for some divine sign to tell me what to do next. Instead, I got a vibration in my pocket, another message. Brielle again. Thought you might want this too. Another photo. This time, not from the party. From a hotel lobby. Time-stamped 2:14 a.m. Rena. Same dress. Same heels. Standing next to him as he leaned across the counter, signing something. She wasn't touching him, but she wasn't far. Her arms were folded, and she was smiling. Not wide. Not forced. Just comfortably there. I saved the image. I didn't respond. That night, I didn't sleep. Again, I didn't even pretend to. I lay on the couch, eyes open, staring at the shadows on the ceiling, waiting for her to come downstairs. She never did. I imagined she slept just fine. In the guest room, her back to the door, no dreams, no guilt, just clean sheets and silence. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise and started packing a small bag. Not to leave. Not yet. But to clear my head. I needed to go somewhere, anywhere, where the walls didn't remember her laughter. Somewhere her perfume didn't haunt the air. But before I could walk out, I noticed something odd. Her laptop was open on the kitchen table. Rena never left her laptop open. Never. She was meticulous about logging out, closing tabs, locking screens. But there it was, unlocked, screen glowing softly in the dark kitchen. And curiosity, or maybe spite, pushed me toward it. What I found inside was worse than the video. Worse than the hotel photo. It wasn't one message. It was a thread. Ongoing. Frequent. With him. They had a nickname for me. They had plans. They had jokes. And buried in the middle of it all was a sentence I will never forget, no matter how many years pass. He still thinks I'm just tired lately. Poor thing doesn't even realize he's already been replaced. I didn't close the laptop. I just stood there, leaning over the glowing screen in the dark, rereading that single sentence over and over like it was some kind of riddle with a better answer hiding between the words. But there was no deeper meaning. No misunderstanding. She had said it plainly, mockingly. Like I was a punchline in a private joke she repeated with someone who slept in beds I didn't know about. He still thinks I'm just tired lately. Poor thing doesn't even realize he's already been replaced. The timestamp on that message was from 2 weeks ago, which meant she hadn't just betrayed me at that party. That was just the night I noticed. The night I finally heard the alarm that had been screaming for months while I convinced myself it was all in my head. I used to tell myself that she was going through something, that she was stressed, that she needed space. But no, she had simply moved on, emotionally, physically, completely, and kept me around like a broken lamp she couldn't be bothered to throw away. I scrolled further through the thread. I shouldn't have, but I couldn't stop. There were messages about me, how boring I was, how I hovered too much, how I never made decisions or never stood up for myself. I read a paragraph where she described how she had to suppress laughter during one of our serious talks because she'd already planned to meet up with him that weekend. She called me a placeholder. That word gutted me. I wanted to scream, throw the laptop against the wall, wake her up and confront her, demand answers, explode in some righteous fury like the men in movies do. But I didn't. I did what I always do. I internalized. I sat down, closed the browser, then carefully shut the laptop as if I hadn't just read the obituary of my own marriage. I stared at my reflection in the microwave door. I looked pale, smaller than usual, defeated, and something inside me whispered, "She's right. You never stand up for yourself." But that was about to change. For the first time in years, I didn't feel confused or helpless. I felt cold, precise, like something in me had crystallized overnight. I wasn't going to beg her for answers. I wasn't going to compete for her affection or fight to win her back. No, I was going to dismantle everything, brick by brick, and she wouldn't even see it coming until she was standing in the ruins. I left the house without a word. I drove around town for hours, clearing my head, thinking things through, planning, not out of vengeance, but for survival. Rena had already removed herself from this marriage emotionally. I was just doing the paperwork for the funeral. But if she thought I was going to roll over quietly, she had underestimated me for the last time. First, I made copies of everything. The video, the messages, the hotel photo. I uploaded them to a private drive, secured behind a password only I would know, just in case she tried to erase her tracks. Then I called a friend, Marty, an old buddy from high school who worked IT for a divorce attorney downtown. I didn't give details, just said, "I need a consult, and I need discretion." He said, "Say no more. Come in tomorrow morning. I'll get you in before hours." Next, I stopped by the bank. I didn't touch the joint account, not yet, but I opened a new one under just my name. Quietly, strategically. I'd spent so many years blindly trusting her with bills and finances, letting her take over because I thought that was love. Turns out, it was just laziness. Or fear. Maybe both. But now I was wide awake. When I got back home, Rena was gone. Her car wasn't in the driveway. I walked in and found a note on the fridge written on a sticky pad. Gone out for drinks with Kat. Don't wait up. I stood there for a full minute, staring at the note, knowing full well Kat was just another decoy name. One of her go-to excuses. A woman who existed enough for text messages and Instagram likes, but not enough to explain the time she disappeared. I didn't crumple the note. I took a photo of it. Then I carefully peeled it off the fridge and stuck it inside a drawer, right next to the old corkscrew we never used. I spent the evening preparing, gathering passwords, printing bank statements, cataloging every small detail I had ignored for months. And then I started writing a letter. Not a confrontation, not an emotional outburst, but a statement. One she would read when the time was right. I didn't know when exactly that would be, but it was coming. And when it did, Rena wouldn't be laughing. Not with him. Not at me. The next morning, I woke up with a strange calmness in my chest. It wasn't peace exactly, more like the steady silence before a storm. Rena was still asleep upstairs, or at least I assumed she was, because her shoes from last night were abandoned in the hallway like she'd stumbled in late and couldn't be bothered to clean up. The sight of them, tipped over and carelessly discarded, filled me with a mix of disgust and clarity. That was her in a nutshell. Come and go as she pleased, leaving me to pick up the mess. But not anymore. I left before she stirred. I didn't say goodbye, didn't leave a note, didn't text. I drove straight into the city to meet Marty, the friend who'd promised to sneak me in for a consultation. His office was tucked inside a plain building, nothing flashy, nothing intimidating, which somehow made what I was about to do feel more real. He introduced me to his boss, an attorney named Howard with sharp eyes that seemed to cut straight through hesitation. I expected to feel guilt as I laid out the story, but instead, I felt something else, validation. For the first time, I was being treated not like the fragile, paranoid husband Rena mocked, but as a man with a legitimate reason to act. Howard didn't even flinch when I showed him the hotel photo, the video clip, the messages. He just nodded, took notes, and said, "You need to start moving assets immediately." Quietly. If she's careless enough to flaunt this, she's careless enough to drain accounts before you can blink. The word drain rattled around in my head like a warning bell. I had never considered that side of things. I thought betrayal was just about love and trust, but Howard reminded me it was about survival. And so, I signed papers, set up directives, and began putting invisible walls between her and the life I had built for us. It felt less like betrayal and more like pulling my hand out of a fire I had been holding for years. When I got back home, Rena was in the kitchen, dressed like nothing had happened, sipping coffee and scrolling her phone. She looked up, gave me the faintest smile, and said, "Where'd you run off to so early?" My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my face neutral. "Just errands," I muttered, pouring myself some water, my hands steady even though I felt like I was balancing on a knife's edge. She didn't press, which in itself told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't interested. She wasn't worried. She had already moved on in her mind, maybe even in her plans. And that gave me an advantage. She underestimated me. She thought I was still that man who would bend and fold just to keep her. That evening, while she showered, I retrieved the note she'd left me about going out with Kat and tucked it into a folder with the other evidence. I don't know why, but it felt important. Like every breadcrumb she left behind was part of a puzzle I needed to finish. When she came back into the room wrapped in a towel, she didn't notice me watching her reflection in the mirror. She hummed lightly, drying her hair, scrolling through her phone one-handed, smiling at something. Him, I thought. She was reading something he sent. And yet, she looked so ordinary, so casual, like nothing was wrong at all. That was the most haunting part. Later that night, while she fell asleep early, I sat downstairs on the couch, staring at the half-finished letter I had started writing the night before. It wasn't enough anymore. Words couldn't capture what I felt. I didn't want to just tell her how she broke me. I wanted her to feel the weight of it. To sit in a silence she couldn't laugh away. To face the reality that the man she mocked as boring and weak had dismantled her safety net right under her nose. I tore up the letter. Instead, I began a different plan. Something deliberate. Something that would leave no screaming matches, no slammed doors, no broken dishes. Only an empty space where I used to be. The kind of absence that gnawed at you like hunger. She thought she was in control. She thought she could replace me without consequence. But what she didn't realize was that I had already started disappearing. Not just physically, but financially, legally, emotionally. Every step she took deeper into her fantasy world with him, I was cutting the ropes that tied her to mine. And as I sat there in the dim light of the living room, a single thought anchored itself in my mind, heavier than anything I'd felt before. She doesn't know it yet, but she's already lost me. And when she realizes, it'll be far too late. It started with something so small, I almost missed it. On Thursday morning, Rena couldn't find her Apple Watch. She stormed through the kitchen, hair still wet, eyes darting around like a storm was building behind them. "Have you seen my watch?" she snapped, opening drawers she never used, pulling coats off hooks, tossing throw pillows onto the floor like the thing might be hiding behind one. I sipped my coffee slowly, intentionally. "Nope," I said without looking up. She stopped and stared at me. "You sure?" I finally met her eyes. Pretty sure I'd remember if I saw something I wasn't looking for. The silence between us stretched uncomfortably, but I didn't break it. I let her stew in it, watching her search like a frantic animal looking for a leash it didn't know had already been cut. The truth was, I had moved the watch. Not to punish her, just to see how she reacted when control slipped a little. That moment told me more than anything else had so far. She wasn't used to feeling disoriented. She was used to me apologizing, scrambling to help, playing the doting fool while she ran her double life like a well-oiled machine. But now the machine was glitching. The cracks started widening the next day. I noticed her pacing by the window, checking her phone, typing and deleting the same message for several minutes. She didn't think I saw her reflection in the glass. She didn't know I was observing everything. The nervous tics, the shortened temper, the way she kept glancing at the front door like something, or someone, was supposed to arrive. I said nothing. I just watched. That weekend, she suggested we go somewhere together. Out of the blue. "Maybe the mountains," she said, with a forced cheerfulness that made my stomach churn. "We haven't had a getaway in forever." I raised an eyebrow. "Thought you wanted space." She hesitated for half a beat too long. "I just thought it might be good for us. Clear the air." There it was. The first tremor. She was trying to put the genie back in the bottle without admitting she ever opened it. But the thing about betrayal is, once it breathes, it never fits back into the lie you kept it in. "You planning the trip with Kat?" I asked calmly. She flinched, just a little. "What's that supposed to mean?" I shrugged. "Nothing. Just wondered if your usual girls' night partner was coming along this time." Her face hardened, the smile dissolving like sugar in boiling water. "Why are you being so distant?" I interrupted. "Cold? Uninvested?" She didn't respond. "Maybe I'm just tired," I continued, setting my mug down with a soft clink. "You know how it is. People get tired." Rena stood there in the middle of the kitchen, shoulders tense, unsure what to say. For once, she wasn't in control of the conversation, and she knew it. That night, I noticed her trying to be present. She brought me wine. She laughed too loud at a rerun of a show we hadn't watched together in years. She sat close on the couch and rested her head against my shoulder, but it didn't feel like affection. It felt like strategy. Like she was trying to rewind something she couldn't admit had already ended. And through it all, I remained still. Polite. Quiet. But I never reached back. The next morning, I got a message from Brielle. Again. This time, she didn't send a photo or a video. Just a sentence. "You were right to prepare? It's worse than you think." I responded immediately. "What happened?" She hesitated for 5 minutes before replying. "He's not just some fling. They've been talking about moving in together. He wants her to secure her future first. He's pushing her to go after the house." For a moment, everything around me went silent. It wasn't just cheating. It wasn't just laughing behind my back or calling me weak. It was worse. She was planning a transition. She wasn't sneaking around like someone who made a mistake. She was calculating, lining up her next life like chess pieces while I paid the mortgage and folded the laundry. I was the final stepping stone. But what she didn't know, what he didn't know, was that the ground had already shifted beneath their feet. By the time she'd get around to swinging the axe, she'd realize the tree was already hollowed out. Because that week, I'd done more than consult a lawyer. I'd drafted papers, moved my money, documented everything. And just this morning, I'd updated the deed on the house, removing her name with full legal backing and the right evidence in hand. She could chase the future all she wanted, but I'd already locked the door behind her. She finally asked. It was Tuesday morning, cloudy, still, One of those days where the house felt a little too quiet, like it was listening. I was at the table, scrolling through job listings on my laptop, sipping my coffee like I didn't have a detonator in my back pocket. Rena walked in wearing a robe, her hair tied back, her expression tight in that way where she tried to look casual but forgot how real humans do it. She hovered by the fridge, pulled out the orange juice, poured some, then leaned against the counter like it was a hostage negotiation. "Have you been avoiding me?" she asked. I didn't look up. "Have you been lying to me?" That shut her up fast. I heard the quiet tap of her nails against the glass in her hand. She set it down. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said after a moment, voice low. I smiled without humor. "Of course you don't." She stepped closer, arms crossed. "Darrell, you've been acting strange for weeks. You disappear for hours. You come home and barely speak to me. You're cold. You're cruel." Cruel. That one nearly made me laugh out loud. This woman, the same one who laughed at me behind my back, shared private parts of our life with a stranger, planned to strip me of everything, was now calling me cruel because I'd finally stopped playing the fool? "I'm just tired," I said, echoing her own words. People get tired. Something flickered in her eyes. She knew. Maybe not the details, but she knew I was no longer asleep at the wheel. She knew I wasn't playing the same role she cast me in, the dependable idiot who'd keep holding the ladder while she climbed toward something better. She followed me as I walked toward the front door, car keys in hand. "Where are you going?" "Out," I said. "Out where?" "To do what people do when their marriages fall apart." I opened the door, turned back toward her. "They go find someone who doesn't treat them like background noise." The color drained from her face. "Darrell, what is going on with you?" But I didn't answer. I just left. I drove aimlessly for a while, letting the city pass me like waves. I didn't have a destination, only a mission, to stay gone long enough for her to stew, to panic, to start realizing her chessboard was flipped. Around noon, I got another message from Brielle. They had a fight. A bad one. I pulled over. "What happened?" He found out she wasn't moving fast enough. He told her she was stalling, wasting time, that she was too comfortable, that if she really wanted to be with him, she'd be done with you by now. I stared at the message, my hands tightening around the wheel. So that was the timeline. That was the pressure. He was pulling strings while she tried to pretend she still had options. And in that moment, something inside me clicked into place. I called my attorney. "It's time." He didn't ask for clarification. He knew what I meant. We set a meeting for Friday. Final documents. Formal delivery. But first, I had one more thing to do. That evening, I came home earlier than expected. Rena was in the kitchen again, where all our confrontations seemed to happen these days, typing something on her laptop, a glass of wine nearby. She didn't hear me at first. When she finally noticed me, she startled a little, like I was a ghost. "You're back," she said. I nodded, walking past her. "Got something for you." She raised an eyebrow. "Oh." I pulled a small box from my bag and set it on the counter in front of her. She looked at it like it might explode. "What is it?" "Go ahead. Open it." Inside was a simple key. Just one. Her hand hovered over it. "What is this?" "It's to the storage unit. You'll need it." She blinked, confused. "Storage for what?" I looked her dead in the eyes. "Your things." She went pale. "You'll find your clothes, your books, everything that was yours when we met. It's all folded and labeled. I've also included a USB drive with copies of your texts, photos, and call logs. In case you forgot what honesty looks like." "You went through my..." "No," I cut her off. "I protected myself. I didn't snoop. I didn't hack. I didn't beg. I built a parachute while you were cutting the floorboards out from under us." Rena stared at me like she was looking at a stranger. "You're leaving?" I smiled, not cruelly, just clearly. "No, you are." For a moment, she didn't say anything. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there, silent, stiff, frozen, like the truth had finally caught up to her, and she didn't know how to run anymore. "I'll be staying here," I added, grabbing my coat. "The house is mine again. You'll find the paperwork in the same box. Legal. Signed. Irrevocable." I walked out before she could speak. The door clicked shut behind me with the kind of finality you don't need to announce. It rained the next morning. Not the violent, angry kind of rain that smashes against windows and makes the world feel smaller, but the gentle, steady kind that softens edges. The kind that says something is being washed away. I woke up alone, for the first time in years, without the weight of suspicion pressing on my chest, without rehearsing a fake smile, without wondering which version of Rena I'd face that day. The silence in the house wasn't oppressive anymore. It was peaceful. She was gone. The night before, after I handed her the key and walked out, I didn't look back. I went to a friend's place, quiet guy I used to work with who owed me a favor. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a blanket and the remote, then went upstairs and left me alone with my thoughts. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there with a strange clarity humming through my bones. By the time I returned the next morning, the driveway was empty. Her car was gone. The front door was locked, but I had the key. I stepped inside to find everything just as I left it. No broken dishes, no torn letters, no mess. Just a folded note on the kitchen counter with my name on it. I read it once, then again. It was short. Apologetic, sort of. Not for the betrayal, not for the manipulation, but for underestimating me. For thinking I wouldn't stand up. That I'd stay small, quiet, disposable. She didn't ask for forgiveness. I respected that, at least. She simply said she'd be out of the state for a while and wouldn't contest anything. She wished me well. That was the end of Rena. But it wasn't the end of me. In the weeks that followed, I did things I hadn't done in years. I rearranged the furniture, not because it needed it, but because I could. I deleted old photos and filled the walls with things that felt like me. I bought new sheets. I found a dog shelter and adopted a skittish, one-eyed beagle named Thumper who follows me from room to room like I'm the whole world. He's good company. I started sleeping better, waking earlier, eating slower. I stopped apologizing for taking up space. And something funny happened. I began running into people. Good people. Not dating, not yet, but real conversations. A barista who remembered my name. A woman at the dog park who laughed at my awful pun and didn't immediately glance at her phone. Strangers who smiled back. The weight of Rena's betrayal didn't vanish overnight. That kind of pain doesn't dissolve, it transforms. It sharpens your vision, hardens your backbone, teaches you to read between lines and listen for silences. But it also cracks you open. And through those cracks, new things grow. I no longer think of myself as the guy who got cheated on. I think of myself as the man who finally stopped being afraid of losing someone who had already let him go. And if there's any lesson in this mess, for anyone reading this, scrolling late at night, wondering if they're crazy for feeling what they feel, it's this. Silence doesn't always mean peace. Kindness doesn't mean weakness. And love, real love, should never come at the cost of your dignity. I lost a marriage, but I found myself. And honestly, that's the best thing I've ever kept.